Good afternoon, my first farmers, students who are in a class that is aimed at expanding their horizon about the knowledge of the Netherlands and St. Martin. Today's topic, we're going to discuss a brief history of the Netherlands. This is going to take about several videos. So this is the first video, and remember the last 2 weeks we've discussed types of government, and later on you will get an assignment to help you review types of government. But for today, so far, we will talk briefly about the history of the Netherlands. Now, the Netherlands began with people living there. They were the Celtic and Germanic tribes. They stayed for a few years, and then the other groups of people that came and invaded a part of the Netherlands, which is the southern part, were the Romans. The Romans had an empire, the Roman Empire, and they occupied, dominated, controlled the Netherlands for about 300 years. After the Roman Empire collapsed, which means it ended, there were another group of people that came. There were several tribes, actually, Germanic tribes, and the most powerful tribe that occupied the Netherlands were the Franks. Now, the Franks had a powerful ruler, very powerful ruler, named Charlemagne. And Charlemagne lasted for a long time in the Netherlands, and after his empire came to an end, the Netherlands was split up in several different regions, several different territories, and they were controlled by powerful people, rich persons called dukes and counts. And it continued like this. The Netherlands continued to witness more groups of people invading their territory. By 1555, Spain, under King Philip II, had occupied the Netherlands. The Spain, in the view of the persons living in the Netherlands, didn't like their rule. They felt that their rule was oppressive, that it was harsh, especially with taxation, that they felt that was unfair. And there was a lot of religious persecution by the Spanish in the Netherlands. So the Netherlands rebelled. They wanted their freedom, and they fought 80 years, 80, for their freedom. So they called the 80-Year War. And it is in 1581, the Netherlands said they want their freedom from Spain. And by 1648, after 80 years of bloodshed, Spain recognized the Netherlands' independence. And from then, the Netherlands started slowly to become a very powerful country. They bought and conquered and obtained territories in Suriname, Guyana, Indonesia, Aruba, Curacao, Bonaire, St. Martin, St. Eustatius, and Saba. And there were other territories too. They even bought a section in New York, Amsterdam, New Amsterdam. And so by the mid-17th century, the Netherlands was also a very powerful maritime power, which means they had a very powerful navy. One of the best in the world, actually the best. And so other European countries challenged the Dutch for their position on the seas and for their territories as well. And we had France, Austria, Russia, Persia, and England. They all challenged the Netherlands. Now that's a lot of countries for one small tiny nation to fight with. And so the power of the Netherlands began to decline. And so there was another person who invaded the Netherlands. It was Napoleon Bonaparte of France, who tried to conquer the entire European continent. And after he was defeated, Napoleon, the Netherlands began some changes of their own. By that time, the early 1800s, there was called the Kingdom of the Netherlands, which consisted of the Netherlands, Belgium, and Luxembourg. Well, in 1830, Belgium wanted their independence as well, and so they revolted and they demanded their freedom, which they secured in 1830. And by 1890, Luxembourg was granted their independence, their freedom from the Netherlands. This ends the first video. Stay tuned for the second video of a brief history of the Netherlands.